On episode 195, we cover Injustice 2's debut. It's some cool shit, guys.
We also have our review of X-Men Apocalypto. X-Men Apocalypse. Is it as good as Days of Future Past or even First Class? We'll find out today.
And we also have Justice League Action's latest editions. All of this and much, much more on this episode.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
For new brokettes, the way we format the show is first we cover some news ranging from comics, movies, TV, games, and more, and then we follow up with some comic book highlights of the week. This time we've got 3 of them covering for you brokettes, all of you DC heads, the DC Rebirth. First ones, number 1's coming up. You'll find out near the end of the show.
Do we ever cover anything else?
Sure, we cover Blue Juice Comics. We cover DC Comics. We cover Saga.
DC is what everyone should be reading. Let's be realistic.
They should read anything we recommend. I mean, you'll be safe. Just listen to us.
Just read it. Just read it. You'll be fine. Just spend your money on it. It'll be good.
How's your tattoo healing up?
Oh man, it's just like a bitch.
You gotta slap it. You gotta kind of smack it.
No, but I like scratch it a little bit.
You can't scratch it.
But it's not scabby anymore.
It doesn't matter. It's still healing. You can't be scratching it. You gotta slap it. You gotta smack it.
But it's like the second layer of skin that's healing. So like the top layer is not really gonna be affected.
You healed like Wolverine. Like mine is still scabby.
That's exactly. I had some really dark spaces too. Like that shit should have stayed scabby for a long time. But it was like, nope, my body's like, you're good.
One thing I want to know, I just thought of Wolverine because we were talking about X-Men. Can he get tattoos? I understand he instantly heals, but would the body reject the ink immediately? I don't think it would because, I mean, we don't heal the ink. It just, it stays there.
And no, I feel like it would though because those skin cells would regenerate almost constantly.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess you're right.
I don't think he can get a tattoo.
He'd be tattooed for like maybe an hour, and then it would eventually regenerate.
I feel like not even. I feel like they'd do the black line, and then it'd be gone almost instantly. Because the blood comes out when you tattoo anyway, so then the skin would heal from that, and then it would just, I don't know.
I feel like this should have been in a Wolverine comic by now. Like, there's no way some writer didn't already do this.
Who's gonna say, like, yes, tattoos, that's what we need to cover, not, like, fucking bad guys attacking the world. Tattoos.
Look, if we've already covered that Wolverine can't get drunk, same with Captain America, they can't get drunk because they just constantly are their metabolism is crazy. Right. Like, they should, I mean, come on, someone write tattoo into Wolverine.
So then can Captain America get tattooed?
He doesn't heal as quickly as Wolverine, so his would last longer. Much longer, I think, than Wolverine's. Old Man Logan, on the other hand, his metabolism, his healing abilities really slowed down. That's why one of the reasons why he refuses to bring out the claws, because it does take him, if I remember Old Man Logan correctly, it does take him a few days to actually heal up. Compared to, almost instantly when he was younger. So he could get fucking tattoos up the ass, and it would probably last him the rest of his life.
Literally, tattoos up his ass. And they would last forever.
Mine's coming along really well.
Yeah, it looks great.
Still scabbing, but otherwise the healing portion of it, I haven't seen part of it that hasn't retained the ink. Because on my animated series one, there were parts that I had to go back to get reshaded because just the ink didn't hold in certain portions or it wasn't as dark in that part.
Because you weren't itching it.
It could have been. No, that's not why. But this Pokemon one's coming along really great. One of my coworkers, Alex, actually, when he saw this, he was inspired. He's like, okay, I'm definitely getting my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tattoo.
That's awesome.
His idea is to get 2 different sleeves, or half sleeves, I should say. One side, Kevin Eastman Turtles.
Okay.
And the other side, the Santoloco, current IDW Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like mirror images of each other, but in different styles. So he was thinking that he could commission Eastman and Santoloco to do like a design like that, and then put it on his arms. But to get those 2 to actually, 1, agree to this, and 2, be able to afford that piece, I think he may just have to settle to like, okay, this is a cover with Eastman Turtles that kind of looks like Santoloco cover. Get that on my skin.
I mean, or you'd have to find somebody on DeviantArt who could copy their style of art.
That's another idea.
Yeah.
I think I would want to probably try to piece together the Turtles first before I went ahead and tried to make something original. But either way, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I actually joked around with him when I came out. He hadn't seen the tattoo yet. So I come out like, hey, check out my Eastman sleeve. Just to freak him out a little bit. He didn't fall for it, though. He knows I fucking troll too often.
You troll all the time. And I tell you need to stop that because you're going to troll the wrong person.
So guess what? At the Irish on Fire on Twitter, he actually put a name to... Remember we were talking last week about my tattoo almost passing out in this with the vaccines? He said it's simply anxiety. That it's something from when I was a child. All that anxiety comes back, the memory of needles, and that's what made that happen. And he said the description of losing sight, losing hearing, it fits what he had, which is also anxiety. So I told him it's like a wimpy version then of PTSD, like this little girl's version, this Daniel version,
baby version of it.
That's what it is. It's not even. It's traumatic in the least amount of. Like, the poorest definition of it is trauma. Just, I don't like needles. So I feel weird sometimes. That's what it is. So now I know. It's anxiety. It's an anxiety attack.
Well, those are very real, though, Danny. So it's okay.
It's like a living nightmare.
Yeah. You're so funny when you do it, though, because you still try to do so much, but you're passing out at the same time, and I'm just like, whoa.
How about anything else throughout the week that's been going on with you aside from the tattoo? You're currently itching still, right now?
It itches so much. I can't not itch my tattoo. It's like the itchiest thing ever, and then I scratch it, my body's just like, yes.
But it's because you're scratching it that your body itches more, because it knows.
I explained
to you in this car.
You just can't power through this shit.
You can't. I explained this to you in the car that my body was like, oh, Dan didn't fucking itch for the last one? Then we're not going to try.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way at all.
Because it like... barely itches, and if I were to start scratching it, I know it would itch way more, because my body would be like, oh, cool, we're good, guys, let's keep trying to make this itch. The body is somehow an individual entity.
It doesn't work that way.
Then how do you explain my willpower to not itch, hence it's not itching at all?
Because you like to suffer. You eat food you don't even like because you paid for it.
I do, and I like, oh, this tastes better. I'm like, I don't care, this is better for me. Like, that's how I live my life. It's not, let me enjoy life as what I want. I'm like, but this is better for me, so I'm gonna get used to this thing, and that will become the new standard, and that will be something I eventually enjoy. You
know what I do? I go, you know what? Let me enjoy it. Let me treat myself. Let me eat this fucking white ass bagel with some butter on it, because fuck it. I know that whole wheat bagel with almond butter is better for me, but fuck it. I deserve this white bagel.
I go, I'm gonna have the wheat one without butter, just a wheat bagel, just like that.
No, it's so gross. Because I know
it's better for me.
It's so gross.
It's not gross. I'm used to it, so it's not gross to me. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Like, it's like the itchiness. You just build that intolerance or that tolerance for healthy food.
Yeah, but then you don't live life to the fullest.
I'm okay with that. Like, I'd rather live life to as healthy as possible. Like, beer and alcohol, that I have, like, no... Like, oh, this one's healthy for me. No, I just drink it. Like, that,
no
I treat
alcohol
myself.
Is healthy
I treat myself to that.
All right, well, you enjoy that life. I'm going to eat my white-ass bagels and my white-ass pasta.
Tell them about Tampa. On Twitter and Facebook, I was sharing about that.
So you did share pictures. We got the opportunity to go to the Cigar City Brewing Company. I had heard from a lot of people they had done these tours. I really, really enjoyed it. And I said, well, fuck it, let's go. And, I mean, the tour was okay. Like, I learned a little bit. Mm-hmm. But they give you this special glass that you can only get when you go on the tour. And then they just refill it with beer everywhere you go. They're like, let's look at this warehouse. Who needs more beer? Here we are.
And that's really what you're paying the $8 for, is like for refillable beer. If you ever go to really any brewery tour, as you mentioned, always go to the very last tour, because that's the one in which they're going to be more willing to refill your cups, refill your beers. And the little cups that you mentioned, they let us keep.
Yes.
And on the back is their current slogan for Cigar City Brewing, which is Hecho a Mano, and that translates from Spanish to made by hand. Mm-hmm. And that goes through all of their beers, all of their brews. Some of it is Cuban-inspired, some of it is Native American-inspired. I mean, there's a lot of localness that goes to this brewing, and they don't actually deliver everywhere.
No, they don't. I think they said 5 different markets, so there's only 5 different states that they're in. But for me, so I deal with beer a lot in my job frequently, and I've seen Cigar City beer in where I work also. So for me, it was really cool to see, they only started 7 years ago, and how big they've become, as a local craft brewery. And they really don't have a lot of space that they brew all this stuff, but they brew so much beer. They were saying in one little tank they brew 5,000 gallons or something ridiculous. And, you see it, you go into the stores down here, and there's Cigar City Brewery everywhere. So for me, it was really interesting to see the process, the space that they have, how this stuff actually gets to my place of work. Like, it all starts here in this little tiny space, and it just, the amount of time they put into making these things. Like, that was what was more interesting for me. I don't really like beer. I like trying beer. I sip it, and then I'm like, oh, I can taste these flavors and this aroma. And, I judge how they pour the beer in, because I'm like, you're not pouring it properly. But the cool thing for me is just to see what goes into making these things, the thought process behind it. Because you have so many beers out there, and they all taste different. But they essentially have the same 7 ingredients, and then they just add different things. So that was what was most cool for me.
You mentioned pouring. What is the correct way to pour?
So you need to turn your glass at a 45-degree angle. 45-degree angle. And you pour it. You have to pull, so when you're pulling it from a perlick, you got to pull the tap handle all the way forward. You can't do it slowly, because then you get a lot of foam, and that's gross. You have to pull it all the way forward, fill it about half full, and then straighten out the glass. And then turn it off completely. And that's what's going to give you a nice, about an inch of foam at the top is what you want.
So you do want the foam.
Yes.
I've heard different things from friends, not brewers, just buddies that are like, oh, there's too much foam on that. And then you're not supposed to have any foam. I'm like, I guess.
That is false. So I'm going into my beer mode right now. So the reason you want the foam is because when you have foam, you smell it before you taste it. So you want that smell, because smell is, of course, directly linked to your taste. And you want to be able to smell it before it hits your palate. And then that's what helps with all the flavors, and it really ties everything in together. If you don't have the foam, then of course you're tasting it before you smell it, and then you're not going to get those same flavors. I don't know if you heard them talking in the tour about how, the first half of the process is for taste, and the second half is for aroma. So you can really have different smells in a beer than you're actually tasting, but when you pair them together, that's when everything works perfectly.
So this has been the Beer Cast with Palpa Kelli.
I am working on my Cicerone certification. If anybody knows what that is, it gets me certified to say I know shit about beer. I don't even fucking like beer, but I know shit about beer.
Also, I do want to say, as we're jumping into the news, because we have a shit ton of news, this is going to be a longer episode for all the Brokettes, and also to the newer listeners, I do want to thank you for checking out the podcast and for giving it a shot. Hopefully you find something in the show that you do enjoy. I say this because Blue Juice Comics did share last week's episode, which gave us a nice bump on the listeners and on the downloads. So if you're sticking around for it, thank you so much, and once again, welcome to the Brokette family.
So our first bit of news, not nearly as interesting as all my beer knowledge. We do have some Pokemon news. So the Pokemon Company has released the second scheduled set of information for Pokemon Sun and Moon via a trailer.
They pretty much treated all Pokemon trainers at this point, because I didn't expect to get this much information already and so soon. But it looks like we are getting more names as to what the legendaries are called. So we got official legendary types, and, of course, the English names. On my version, which is Pokemon Sun, the legendary's name is Solgaleo, and that is a Psychic and Steel type. Not what I expected. I expected Fire something.
Sounds lame.
Well, let's give them your legendary's name, then.
I have Lunala, a.k.a. Batman. And its type is Psychic and Ghost. How fucking cool is that? You can't get any cooler than Psychic and Ghost.
Does that translate from Hawaiian? Lunala means Batman?
Yes, that is what I'm saying.
So that's where they got it from. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Psychic Ghost. That is not a typing you get often. I think there's only one other Pokemon that has that. Ooh. I believe it is, I want to say Giratina, but I'm pretty sure I'm wrong. I know it can't be a regular typing.
I don't like that Pokemon, so I don't care.
So you're counting Lunala.
Yes.
That's one I expected, if I had to guess, was going to be a Dark Fairy. Or what if these two were brand new types, like, let's say, Space type or Cosmic types?
There's way too many types. What are you even talking about?
They need to add more types to keep the game interesting.
Space Cosmic? Like, what is that even super effective against?
Something that is fucking Fairy. Fairy has a few weaknesses.
That just makes no sense. Space Cosmic, no, I can't.
Like, you know who'd be in that, right? Clefairy. Clefairy's the moon Pokemon.
Okay, whatever.
And then these legendaries.
Okay, so 3 Pokemon.
Rayquaza comes from the sky.
He comes from the sky, not from space.
He probably comes from fucking space.
Those are 2 different things.
Deoxys is another one that comes from space. That's definitely an
Isn't that like the god Pokemon?
No, you're thinking of Arceus. That'd be another one, though.
No, this makes no sense. Who's to say that god Pokemon comes from space?
We also got the latest Pokedex. This is a new one. Like, this is the Exorcist of Pokedexes, because this one is actually inhabited by the Pokemon Rotom.
So they pretty much went, this Pokemon still exists. Here he is.
That Pokemon does not need a reminder, because that is on competitive teams all the time.
Really?
You see the washing machine version of it, because it's fucking weak to nothing. I mean, that fucking thing is ridiculous. Every time I come across a competitive team, if I ever want to just have a bad day, I go online and I battle people, and I see fucking Rotom, and I'm like, this motherfucker, like, I'm not going to be able to defeat that fucking thing. Like, I don't even know if I can poison the thing. Like, my whole strategy is poison you and just wait as you die, but I don't think I could even poison Rotom. Like, that thing is always a bitch to take down.
He's gonna put it on, like, heavy duty cycle and just wash away that poison with his washing machine body.
I'm like, damn it, you're so effective.
Cut them stains out.
That's another Pokemon that it looks like an object. Like, that one I can give people, like, the benefit of the doubt.
No, that's such a weird Pokemon. Like, that's I remember when you had to go to the spooky-ass house and find him in the TV because he was jumping around electricity, and now he's, like, possessing lawnmowers and fans and fucking washing machines
Pokedexes.
And Pokedexes. Don't even understand.
The upside to this is now the new Pokedex is going to have its own personality, and it will give players hints for their next-gen destinations, which isn't something that we used to get.
I don't like this.
Because it's change, and it's different.
No, I'm not saying because it's change. Because when I played Sapphire for the first time, I sailed around that fucking ocean for like 7 hours because I didn't know where to go. And when I found out where to go, that made the game so much better because I had discovered it on my own. Now, Rotom's going to be like, maybe you should dive here.
Well, you don't have to use Rotom. You don't have to look at the Pokedex.
He's not just going to randomly show up and tell me what to do?
I don't know. I don't think so. Like, maybe he will, maybe he won't.
Or maybe he will pop up all the time and be like, maybe you should head towards Route 2. And I'll be like, Rotom, let me live my life. Okay? You're just a fucking Pokedex.
Staying on the video game side, you mentioned Injustice 2 earlier.
Yes.
After several rumors, after several leaks, NetherRealm Studios has finally unveiled the very first trailer and official confirmation for the sequel to the hit Injustice: Gods Among Us.
And what a great fucking trailer it was. It was amazing. Batman was just kicking ass.
we're gonna make a trailer and Batman's just gonna be fucking destroying the Flash and Superman and Aquaman. Yeah. They're all gonna be his bitch. I'm like, oh well, okay.
It sounds like normal.
What happens in the comics.
Perfect. So the synopsis is Batman and other heroes are trying to rebuild society in the wake of Superman's madness, while others attempt to rebuild the Man of Steel's reign. So some people are right, and most people are wrong.
Who wants Superman's reign again?
Not me. I mean, probably some crazy people. I don't know.
Didn't Batman defeat all of them? What are they doing?
Batman defeats everyone all the time. They're just trying to go against Batman. They're like, oh, maybe Batman will show up here if I'm doing the wrong thing.
They're all in love with Batman. That's Superman's secret plan was to piss off Batman enough to he's like, stop me, please. He just wanted attention, right?
Punch me into the ground. Now, like, sit on me so I don't get it back up.
Like, Injustice Universe Superman was so craving for attention from Batman that he killed the Joker just so that Batman can be like, I need to stop you at all costs. Like, that's how far he went. Like, that strength of love in that Superman was it went too far. It went way too far.
It was so funny. But I am so excited for this game. If you guys haven't seen the trailer, definitely check it out. It's really cool too because they just they build more armor. I don't know what's going on. What's happening? Why are they in the pit? What's the pit?
I'm hoping that's Ra's al Ghul that is talking in the narration because he's talking about a pit being reborn. And none of the other characters fit that description exactly. Like, yeah, maybe they could be talking about Superman's reign being reborn, but I'm thinking Ra's al Ghul. And Ra's al Ghul was not a playable character in the first Injustice. I want to see him playable in Injustice 2. Now, the armor that you were talking about, Players are going to be able to actually customize that armor and affect the character's gameplay, the moves, and also the look of each character. So that's what that was hinting at.
They also have confirmed new characters so far. Not Ra's al Ghul, but we do have Atrocitus and Religrad.
Both bigger characters, heavy characters. From that lineup we had...
Both characters that Batman are going to kick their ass.
Yeah, just fucking knock him out.
Yeah.
Doomsday was a big character in the last game. Yeah. Lex Luthor was another one. So adding to that, Atrocitus and Gorilla Grodd. The game is set to release next year, 2017.
Perfect. Cannot wait.
So dream roster right now.
Yes.
Right now you want characters in Injustice 2. We're going to get more heroes, more villains. Yes. We got Supergirl confirmed in this one.
Okay. Yes, we saw her.
I want to see Ra's al Ghul.
Okay.
There's one more character. What about you, though? Who do you want to see?
Batman.
More Batman? Which version of Batman? Like, what
all of
skins?
Them. Give me all the Batman. Just give me fucking Batman the Animated Series Batman. That is the only one I need to see. And he can even look all, like, 2D. Batman the Animated Series-ish. Just be kicking ass. Like, that's the only character. And I can't play these games. And I've talked about it multiple times on the podcast. Like... I suck at these games. I'm good at button mashing and Fire Emblem. And that's about it.
I've got two characters for you. And you're going to be like... Cool. Well, that's a third one. But okay. Swamp Thing. Oh, man, I want Swamp Thing in Injustice 2.
Yeah, okay.
Ready for the other one?
Yeah.
And this has to be a Season Pass exclusive
character. Is it going to blow my mind?
Sort of. It's going to be obvious when I say it. Dr. Manhattan.
Oh, man, yeah.
Put someone from the Watchmen now. In Injustice 2.
Spoilers.
Like, if they can put Sub-Zero and the other Mortal Kombat characters as DLC, I think Scorpion was the only one that they actually confirmed. But they got to have, like, some oddball character out there.
Okay, cool. So you put in Dr. Manhattan, but then you win.
Well, you can say that about Batman, too.
Okay, but you can say it more so about Dr. Manhattan because he's fucking God.
Well, he only loses to Batman. And maybe Ozymandias if he's in there.
Okay, so I would rather see them put Ozymandias in there. Maybe the comedian. That Rorschach? Would be really cool. Put Rorschach in there. Put Jupiter. Mm-hmm. Is that her name?
I think it was Lady Jupiter or Miss Jupiter.
I think it was Miss Jupiter. I would see them in there before I would see Manhattan. Maybe a stage where Manhattan, like, they're on Mars and Manhattan's face is there and he, like, does shit, like...
He's the final boss?
Like, I'm throwing my hands on the stage. So
it's Master Hand and Crazy Hand from Smash Brothers.
Like, he just does shit like that. I don't see him as being an actual character, though, because then he could just, like, nuke them all, and that'd be the end of it.
I want to know Broquette's dream roster for Injustice 2. What characters do you want to see in this sequel, even through Season Pass, through whatever, even if it's just on the disc itself? I mean, we know we're going to get characters on the Season Pass. I'll pre-order this shit and the Season Pass immediately. I'll give it all my money. Let us know on Twitter @ReasonsI'mBroke or Facebook.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke. We'll share your answers on next week's.
I have my pick now.
Go for it.
I want to see Pikachu.
We can't have Pokemon in there.
I'm telling you my dream roster. You said my dream roster. You didn't say my realistic dream roster. Okay, Pikachu and a Harvest Moon cow.
Like, it can be Bat Cow.
No, I want a Harvest Moon cow. I did not say Bat Cow. I said a Harvest Moon cow. So we will see, like we said, in 2017, next year.
We'll get more info at E3, too, in a few weeks.
Hopefully.
Some more new additions coming this month are what's new on Netflix. This is our monthly segment in which we cover what is coming up this month for the Broquettes relating to the podcast.
I think that we should have a jingle for this.
I'm working on the jingle. I'm still trying to find that sound effect of Netflix of goong. Like, I need to find that, and I can't find it anywhere.
There needs to be a song like, what's new on Netflix? Goong.
Yeah, maybe I'll get our theme song guy to work on it.
Yeah, that'd be so cool. So yes, what's new on Netflix? We got some great titles this month, too. So first up, we have Jurassic Park. Fuck yeah. Who doesn't love Jurassic Park? So, my parents showed me, have you seen those guys who dress up as T-Rexes and run around?
Yes, I love those videos.
They have one where they chase a Jurassic Park Jeep. And it's like my favorite thing. They played it for me for like 30 minutes. They just kept finding these videos. My favorite is when they get to a later video and they clearly popped one of their suits, so there's just a duct tape X over their leg.
Those suits look great, too. They look better than even some of the dinosaurs in Jurassic World. But you mentioned Jurassic Park 1. There's also Jurassic Park 3, The Lost World, and Jurassic Park 2. So that's the one with Jeff Goldblum. The sequel that I would have wanted if I lived during that time. Like, if you're going to make a sequel, put Jeff Goldblum in it. Oh, they have it? All right, cool. I'm good.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, I don't care how bad the movie was. Like, Jeff Goldblum's all up in that shit, and I loved it. So all 3 are now on Netflix.
We also have Pokemon the movie Hoopa and the Clash of Ages, a.k.a. Pokemon the movie Who Cares and the Clash of Ages.
I hope it's better than the last one.
I don't like Hoopa. I don't even know what Hoopa is.
That's the, like, gypsy-looking Pokemon with all the different rings. And then the Mega Form, or maybe it's just an evolution, but the Mega Form has, like, hands that go into portals and pop out of another portal to hit you.
So it's a gypsy Pokemon. So does it try to sell its daughters? Do you?
That's so racist.
I'm just saying. Did you not have a situation in which that happened?
Yes, I did. All right, now I gotta tell the story.
Now you gotta tell the story.
It wasn't to me, though. It was to one of my coworkers. And yes, I witnessed this. It was at GameStop when I worked in a particular part of Florida that wasn't the best, and one of this guy who was legitimately a gypsy, and I don't know what made him a gypsy. What country is that even from? I don't know what gypsy qualifies as. I feel like gypsies
are like Germany or
I don't know if it's Germany but it's
Europe somewhere.
Or maybe somewhere in the Middle East, Southwest Asia.
I definitely feel like it's Europe.
But my coworker called him a gypsy. Like, and I'm like, I guess it's just a gypsy. And he wanted so bad a GameStop discount that he was willing to, apparently, according to my coworker, and I saw him come in and always try shady shit. Like, offered his daughter, and like, oh, my daughter, she's very beautiful, and I get a discount on all my games. And he was always trying all kinds of bullshit. Like, he was out there on the parking lot with a spray bottle, and he would pick out cars that had foggy headlights, and he would tell them that he would clear it right up and with the headlight thing, and then, like, want to get paid for it.
With some fucking water from the hose over there.
It never, like, he would say, like, oh, like, he would swear that it's cleaner and clearer, but that's because he was cleaning the actual outside of the fucking headlight. And he would say, oh, in a few days, this is going to clear right up. And then he would expect money. There's another guy whose car broke down while we were working. And the fucking gypsy went in. He's like, hey, I'm going to help you. And they went underneath the car. And he just banged on the thing, like with a wrench. He banged on the engine. He's like, your engine's misaligned. It's not lined up right. And we're like, that's not a fucking thing.
That's not even a thing.
And he's banging on the engine, like, lining it up. And eventually, like, obviously that didn't fucking fix the thing. Of course not. And he's like, oh, no, you're going to have to call someone. So I'm like, you fucking broke that guy's engine. Like, you just messed it up even more by banging on it with a fucking wrench, hoping that the car would turn on.
Now, granted, that guy is messed up for letting that other guy bang on
that guy's an idiot, too.
Yeah.
That guy's an idiot, too. Fucking letting gypsies
You're all crazy.
Run the parking lot. And that guy sucked so much. He wanted, like, $60. He wanted his full trade-in value on Madden for that year. He's like, I just bought this. And we're like, well, that's GameStop. We got to make money off of it. So we're going to offer you $20 or $30, and then we're going to sell it at $55. That's the business. That's where GameStop makes its money from. And he's like, well, can I sell it outside? Or can I sell it here to someone? We're like, no, you can't sell it here. You can go outside and try to sell it. That's your business. But you can't be in here trying to sell, like, another version to someone else. He was out there for an hour trying to sell Madden, the latest copy. But he's got no sales, anything. This is why he was unsuccessful at aligning engines and clearing up headlights.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's shady as fuck. So if I'm walking into a store to buy a game and somebody's like, hey, you want to buy this game from me? I'm going to be like, no, I don't know what's wrong with it. I'm going to go inside that credible store and buy it for the same price.
Credible. Well, with that handsome Hispanic guy over there.
Yeah, that guy right there.
He's going to convince me to reserve shit. That's exactly where people went. They kind of ignored him. They went inside. After an hour, the gypsy came back in and he said, all right, I'm going to trade it in. Traded it in not for store credit, for cash. So he got even less than what the value would have been. And then he fucking booked it. So we think he just stole it from Walmart. That's what because there was a Walmart right behind that GameStop.
I mean, it's possible. But see, this is why you should not watch Pokemon Hoopa Gypsy.
So that's the Hoopa. Like, Hoopa was at my parking lot for that GameStop and was doing all that shit. I'm glad I can tell these stories now that I work at GameStop. Yeah. We also have, related to Pokemon XY Season 2 is coming to Netflix.
I don't remember watching that. You should only watch the first season of Pokemon?
No, the latest season of Pokemon XY, has the best stories in all of Pokemon's TV shows. Has the best animation. And yes, it has the best voice acting as well. I'm sorry, Pokemon right now, the TV show, is the best in all the history of the show.
Who are you? Get out of my house.
I'm a guy that can see what is in front of me. Their quality, like, back then it was all about selling the fucking games, Like, how long is this fucking plan gonna go? Like, maybe we got 5 years on Pokemon's popularity. Let's just make a TV show. Try to sell the video games by having Tracy in there. All kinds of weird shit with Pokemon Snap. Now they're like,
weird shit with Pokemon Snap. You retract that statement.
I like Pokemon Snap just fine. The story in the TV show for Pokemon Snap was lame. Like, Tracy was a lame fucking sidekick. He
really?
replaced
Was it
Brock.
Tracy? Was it Tracy? Was Tracy in Pokemon Snap? Is that who was in Pokemon Snap?
What was his name
Was
then?
it Tracy? It was Todd.
Fucking Todd. Whatever his fucking
Don't
name is.
fucking Todd.
Even worse, Todd.
Pokemon Snap is one of the best Pokemon games that's ever been released.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that right now the show has top-notch writers because Pokemon's been around for fucking 20 years.
I'm just saying that I don't like Pokemon X and Y because Misty's not there. And how are Ash and Misty supposed to fall in love if she's not even there? And that is what it all boils down to all the time, is who's falling in love.
That's all you care about.
That's all I care about.
Continuing on the list, The Giver, which we ended up seeing.
Yeah, it was a movie.
Yeah, I love the book. The movie, not so much. I mean, they tried. Jeff Bridges was in it.
They tried.
Pretty much played his character from Tron.
Played himself. And then we also have Sin City, A Dame to Kill For.
I love that sequel.
Yeah.
That was good. If you like Sin City, this one came out like, 5-7 years later from the first one.
A long time.
They did a really good job in adapting, like staying in that same theme from the first movie. Some characters were replaced because either they wouldn't come back or, in Brittany Murphy's case, unfortunately passed away. But with Sin City, they brought in Christopher Lloyd, who kicked ass in his short role. Like, he has an awesome piece in that. So I really recommend, if you like Sin City, check out the sequel, A Dame to Kill For.
I didn't see the first one, but I did like the sequel, too.
For the full list of what's new on Netflix, these are just the highlights, but you can check out all of it if you just Google what's new on Netflix June 2016.
But I mean, really, who needs any more than this? We highlight all the good shit.
It's a really good list. Fucking solid list.
Except for that Hoopa shit.
So let me ask you, Kelly, as a woman.
Yes.
Because I can't ask this to anyone else. You represent all women.
I represent all the women of the world.
You represent, as of this podcast, you represent all the women, right?
Yes, of course. Clearly.
Later on, we're going to have the review to X-Men Apocalypse.
Yes.
This movie had some billboards up in which it depicted Mystique being strangled by Apocalypse. And that has brought a backlash for its image of, quote, violence against women.
Of course.
When I saw this image and I saw the article, my mind, and it's probably because I'm a guy, I didn't go, that's going to be offensive to someone. I just saw, that's Jennifer Lawrence. She's the most marketable part of this movie. Of course, they'd put her on a billboard. And then they have the villain, Apocalypse, choking out the most famous actress in this movie. But it would appear that there was a movement to get the billboards changed. And you saw this differently.
Of course I did. Because I am a person of the people. I represent all women.
So tell me about the billboard. What it shows exactly what I said.
Of course. So it shows Apocalypse strangling Mystique. Of course, Mystique is a woman. And everybody's freaking out. And with good reason, too. So something that we actually talked about earlier in the week. When you go to see this movie, you expect that to happen.
You expect violence against all characters,
exactly.
I guess,
You're expecting violence against all characters. You are choosing to go step into this theater where you understand that these things would happen. With Avengers, Black Widow got beat up. You assumed going into the movie that there is a possibility that all the characters could be injured at some point in whatever reason that is. When you put that on a billboard, you are now telling people who are not going into your movie assuming that happens. You're just telling all people that this is what your movie is about. So you have people who take offense to that, people who are not going to see it, who are now seeing this billboard saying this movie is violent against women. Because that is the only exposure they have to that.
So they're saying that the marketing move is, here's violence against women, and that's our marketing. Mm-hmm. But I know it's not the only billboard. Like, I still viewed it as Jennifer Lawrence is in this movie. Here's a billboard of an image of her getting choked. I mean, it's Jennifer Lawrence, and why wouldn't you use that, I guess?
But you are not a woman who's been in a violent situation.
Is the line drawn then where we shouldn't have, I guess, any violence in billboards, or specifically against certain groups that might be more sensitive to it?
I think that it is a safer bet that you shouldn't have violence on billboards, because you will always have somebody who relates to that situation. And when you relate to that situation, then it becomes offensive. And when you have people who know people who relate to that situation, it becomes offensive for them as well.
So you personally, did you find it offensive, or was it...
I personally did not find it offensive. I can see why people would find it offensive. I can see why women would say, oh, I've been in that situation. How dare you advertise that as something amazing that I should go see and support, essentially.
Should it not be instead, I'm not going to watch that movie because they're using that advertisement. I'm not going to support it with my dollar because they're doing that. And the quickest way to not support something or say something against it is to not give it its money.
I mean, I see that also, but what happens to the little kids who think Apocalypse is cool?
No one thinks Apocalypse is cool.
Somebody thinks Apocalypse is cool. But I'm saying it's the thing that they are promoting that as, you should go see this movie because of this moment. That's what they're saying. They're saying, this is the coolest moment of the movie, this is why you should go see it, because this man is choking out this woman.
I can agree that there are definitely better images they could have used, especially having seen the movie now. You could have chosen different images that wouldn't have even spoiled the movie itself to have in here. We do have a quote here from actress Rose McGowan, who led the charge against the billboards on display. She told The Hollywood Reporter the following:
"There is a major problem when the men and women at 20th Century Fox think casual violence against women is a way to market a film."
Following the controversy, 20th Century Fox did issue this statement: "In our enthusiasm to show the villainy of the character Apocalypse, we didn't immediately recognize the upsetting connotation of this image in print form. Once we realized how insensitive it was, we quickly took steps to remove those materials. We apologize for our actions and would never condone violence against women."
I don't think that statement is untrue at all. I think they just said, oh, this is a really cool scene. It makes nice for a billboard. Let's put it up there because, yes, Jennifer Lawrence is the biggest marketing thing that we have in this movie, and Apocalypse is just being shitty against her.
Following the removal of the billboard, do you think, or even all this controversy, do you think it's good for the film, though, overall? Do you think this is going to get more eyes, more marketing? I mean, what is the saying? That any kind of exposure, any of marketing is good marketing?
Yeah. I don't know that it really did that. I feel like this movie had enough marketing in and of itself. Superhero movies are becoming so big, and I think the same could be said about this movie. I mean, it's X-Men. It's fucking cool. You got all these different, people. You have stuff that appeal to the brand new X-Men fans and some things that appeal to the older X-Men fans. And it's all in here. And the previous two movies, I think, were really solid as well. So I don't think it particularly hurt or helped the movie in any way to have this particular billboard up. I think it was good that women did say something about it, because I don't feel that was the right marketing move, but I don't think it really impacted them.
And again, we'll have our full review for X-Men Apocalypse towards the end of the podcast. That'll be the last thing we cover to avoid any spoilers, people that didn't want to have the movie spoiled, because we will have a full plot review of the film.
So moving from the big to the little screen, something that I never thought would happen, just not in a million years did I think this was going to happen. After several blurry appearances in Season 1 of Supergirl, Superman is set to make his full appearance in the first 2 episodes of Season 2.
In the past, he was just, covered in light. You couldn't really see him, covered in shadow.
AIM messages.
Always in the background. Always, far off in the distance. When he was mind-controlled, he was, tiny, walking the streets. You couldn't really make him out. And now they're going to go full steam ahead with this character.
They're like, fuck it, whatever.
The CW is currently in the middle of casting the Man of Steel.
Spoilers, it will be Daniel.
I would fucking play anyone. Anyone that...
Okay, so do your best Superman, anything.
Lois, I need to go see Batman.
Is that what he's going to say?
He always sounds like that. He's always going to be... In every universe, every version of Superman, he loves Batman. And that gives us the cue for Superman Loves Batman theme song.
I can lift you up. I can show you what you want to see and take you where you want to be. You could be my luck. Even if the sky is falling down, I know that we'll be safe and sound. We're safe and sound.
I'm pretty sure he has never sounded like that in anything except our heads.
In all the comics I read, that's what he sounds like.
Well, yeah, in our heads. then you walking into an audition saying, this is my rendition of Superman, is not going to make them cast you.
I mean, come on. Maybe in that version of the universe, Superman looks like Cisco Ramon, and I can easily fill that role.
Okay.
Except not anymore. I got that haircut.
What happens when... I love your haircut, by the way. It looks great. So what happens when Flash crosses over with Supergirl and Cisco Ramon's in Supergirl's world and, like, Superman shows up?
Then he has to pretend to be Superman in that world, but he has no power, so hijinks happen. Like, that's a plot right there. That's a fucking episode.
Okay, you write that episode, and then we'll see what happens.
I know this is going to cause a lot of nerd ragers once that Superman makes his debut. Now, I'm seeing reactions right now, and it's not necessarily nerd rage, so I didn't pick any out. But they're saying, good, let's pick out a non-murdering Superman that we're getting in the films. Let's do Superman right. And other good ideas is, I don't know the actor's name, but casting the actor from Smallville and having him be Superman.
That'd be awesome.
Finally wearing the red and blue.
Yes, because he was just the blur all through that show.
And in the final episode is when he finally wore the official Superman costume. I never saw the show, but that was like the big thing.
That was like my dad's favorite show. He loved that show so much.
So how big would that be? Is that a missed opportunity if they don't use that Superman?
I won't say it's a missed opportunity. It would be really cool. Then people are going to start linking that with Smallville. And then they're going to start saying, well, why isn't this in continuity? And why isn't that?
Well, I think we've moved far enough from Smallville where they can kind of separate themselves from it.
Do you not know the internets? You clearly do not know the internets.
Well, we got, what's his name, from The Adventures of Superman, Clark and Lois and Clark or whatever?
Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman? Okay, but that had a way smaller following than Smallville.
Just a tiny bit smaller.
And that was way longer ago. And he was only in there for like a hot second.
I'm still surprised that they're even revealing Superman, because from my understanding, Warner Brothers wanted to keep this and they own all of this, so they wanted to keep the television versions away from the movie versions. So if they wanted to use similar characters, they either had to be from a very different timeline where it would distinguish that version of the character, like young Bruce, blurred out Superman. And Deathstroke, more recently, they were saying you can't use in the Flash or an Arrow because he's tied up in a different project, which we're thinking is going to be Suicide Squad, like maybe an after-credit scene or something, maybe in the sequel, maybe in the Batman film, who knows. But in this case, it's almost like one of the biggest characters at DC, Superman, and they're saying, fine, go ahead and make another version, make a television version. Very bizarre, very weird.
Yes, that... I am with you and I agree. At the same time, how many more views are they going to get for that? And maybe they'll make him long-haired Superman. And
Please do long-haired Superman. I want to see that on the big screen one day, even the little screen. We need long-haired Superman.
And then you could distinguish it that way. But I don't know. I am not in charge of DC and Warner Brothers and all that nonsense.
One of the biggest theories is because Supergirl is moving over to the CW, their idea is that if we put a big character like Superman to make his debut, again, it's going to be in the first 2 episodes of season 2, that's going to get a lot of attention, and it's also going to get the solidification that they're going to need for viewers to say, okay, it is now on the CW, and to get used to seeing it on the new network. Like, that's a big enough event that will make the CW their new home. This is where we debuted television Superman on CW's Supergirl.
Definitely, yes, they will get views. I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm sure we're going to get some nerd rage reaction like, oh, I don't like this one as much as the movie one. Why couldn't they just get the movie one?
No, they're going to say, why can't they make this the movie version one? Like, it's going to be the opposite.
Whatever. Either way, it's going to get them a lot of views, but we'll see the fallout that happens after that.
Another DC show, and that is one that we're especially looking forward to, is the expanded roster for Cartoon Network's animated series, Justice League Action. This is the one with Kevin Conroy as Batman, and the one with Mark Hamill as the Joker.
Both of them being who they already are?
For an entire show? Like, how fucking awesome is that? Like, say what you will about the character designs, they can look like whatever. It's fucking Batman and it's the fucking Joker in Justice League Action. But now we got to look at more designs of these characters coming right up.
So they have unveiled all of these at a recent conference. First up, we have Shazam. Awesome. Shazam, I think, is going to get a little hype really soon. He's a great character. We have Harley Quinn in her classic fucking Jester costume.
Did not see that
Did
happening.
not see that coming.
It almost felt like they were retiring that version because in the movies we're getting something different. In the DC Superhero Girls show, she looks very different. She looks more like the comics now than she did back in the 90s. But the classic Jester outfit, it looks like a Bruce Timm design. Like if you look at the picture, it's almost exactly straight out of seasons 1 through 4 of Batman the Animated Series.
Now they just need to get Arleen Sorkin up in there and we're fine.
Tara Strong, stay away. You can be Batgirl. Get Arleen as Harley.
My favorite, I was talking to somebody at the convention recently at MegaCon, and they're like, Tara Strong, it sounds like a dolphin. And I'm like, okay. How many dolphins have you been speaking to?
I want to start a hashtag. Hashtag Arleen as Harleen.
Perfect. I love it.
That's perfect, right?
That is. That's great. I don't know how far it'll go, but
you heard it first here. If it becomes a thing,
Arleen is Harleen.
Arleen as Harleen.
Love it.
That's going to be the episode name.
Yeah?
It's going to kick it off, like the fucking episode name.
Are you going to make it like a hashtag on the episode name, or is it just going to say Arleen as Harleen?
Arleen as Harleen, and then when they listen to the app, then they'll know, like, that's what that's about.
That makes sense. Perfect. So we also have Mr. Terrific.
Mr. Fantastic from the Fantastic Four.
Same thing.
Making his appearance.
No, I mean, Fantastic Terrific. It's like the same thing, whatever. I don't know who Mr. Terrific is, actually.
He was in the Justice League animated show also with Bruce Timm. He's got the T. African American. He's got T on his head. He worked at the Watchtower.
The Red Tornado?
Not the Red Tornado.
Okay, well, Mr. Terrific is there. We also have Hawkman. Lobo. Didn't see that one coming either. Joker. Dr. Fate. Blue Beetle. Swamp Thing, your favorite.
Love Swamp Thing.
There he is. Firestorm. Big Barda. And Dr. Light.
Just a few of a bunch that I'm sure. Well, this seems like it's going to shape out more like Justice League Unlimited, in which they're going to focus on the smaller characters and use the core Justice League members as like, okay, so this is the home, and from here we're going to offshoot into, the Flash teaming up with Shazam, and that's going to be an episode. Or Batman fighting the Joker, but teaming up with Big Barda. Who knows? Like, that can be like the way that they can reintroduce some of these characters to a new generation of viewers, because we haven't really seen Swamp Thing on the little screen in years. It's been a while. And even in the Bruce Timm version, he only appeared in the background like once, because it wasn't necessarily, it was more
like, there's some empty space here, add something.
Exactly right. So I love the designs. The Joker himself looks like the Justice League version more than it does the animated series. And all of these do look like smaller, fatter, kind of more square, if you can believe it, Bruce Timm versions of them. And as far as the designs, like we said, Harley Quinn, spot on. Use the Jester design of it.
Of course.
And we're all for it. We're, of course, going to watch it based on the voice actors alone. Recently on Instagram, Tara Strong put up a picture, and all it said was, I wonder what we're working on. And it's a picture of herself, Kevin Conroy, and Paul Dini, like in a voice acting thing, and I'm like, what the fuck? And
what's Tara Strong doing there? Is she just like hanging out till Arleen shows up?
I don't know what it is. Like Paul Dini, that's what threw me for a loop. Like Kevin Conroy and Tara Strong, it could be Injustice, it could be Justice League Action, it could be the a new Arkham game maybe. But the fact that Paul Dini was there, I'm like, what is this? What is going on? What the fuck are you guys working on? We need to know.
Ask Kevin Conroy.
I can't anymore. We determined that. Like every time you try to ask Kevin Conroy, he's got someone running his Twitter now that's like, you're not gonna fucking tell them anything. You're not going to say anything, Kevin.
Keep your mouth shut.
You're just going to show up at these fucking conventions, and if they ask you a question about this, I'm going to step in and I'm going to answer it for you. I should have asked them at MegaCon.
Yeah, you should have.
I should have fucking asked them, like, hey, is this... And I would have had to guess something, because that's the only way he would tell us. It can't say, hey, what's this for? Like, it would have to be like, oh, is this for Batman the Animated Series Season 5? Is that what the thing was? Like, something crazy, just to see if he confirms it.
You should have, because that would have been great, because he would have confirmed it, and you still need to make your Twitter called @ConroySays.
Conroy confirmed. Conroy leaks? I don't know.
Conroy leaks.
Batman leaks. That'd be another one, too. We had mentioned about 2 episodes ago how we're going to go full steam ahead with the DC Superhero Girls marketing. And no exception to this rule, a full-length feature movie, animated movie, for DC Superhero Girls is coming.
I mean, that's the right fucking move. That's a great idea. So we do have a quote here who says, "We're excited to bring DC Superhero Girls to life and create an immersive world to help inspire young women like never before. These characters were developed with girls 6 to 12 in mind and will deliver epic storylines featuring strong females. It truly embraces and celebrates girls as they discover their own unique abilities.
And that's straight out of the press release from Warner Brothers DC Comics. I think they were waiting to see how the YouTube show did and how the toy sales are going, even though they said the actual release of the rollout of all the products was going to be next month, July, is what we had said in the 3 episodes ago. So I think this is a part of it. Try to start to kick off this whole line of books and products and everything. Even at the comic shop I work at, I've had young boys that actually ask about it. I got the free comic book day version of the book. Is there something else? And I wish I could be like, yes, here's this thing. But I'm like, in a few weeks, there's going to be this trade that's going to be the full story of what you just read. So I like that it's aimed at younger female readers. But even, guys are getting into it. Like, oh yeah, that was a lot of fun and I enjoyed it. And I think a lot of that helps with My Little Pony, with the bronies, because there's a lot of boys watching that too. So all of that comes together, and if it's a successful cartoon, if it's a solid cartoon, anyone can enjoy it.
Right, and that's the biggest thing about it. I mean, something I want to point out is regular comic books. They're not geared towards women. They're generally geared towards men, but if it's a good story, then women are going to pick it up also. The same can be done in reverse. So I think this is a fantastic idea. I've gotten on a rant before about princesses and, etc. But that's something that I think is so important to teach young girls is you can take care of your shit yourself. You don't need a man to step in and take care of it for you.
Or just anyone else in general.
Or just anyone, exactly.
DC Superhero Girls will be titled Hero of the Year, and it's going to digitally release on August 9th. But if you're like us and you like something physical, that will be on home video on August 23rd.
That's amazing. Definitely something that we're going to check out. So something else that DC and Warner Brothers is going to release soon, animated, is their new animated adaptation for the New 52's Justice League Dark.
They're not fucking done on the animated side. They're going to be trying to continue to kill it on that end, and Justice League Dark is pretty huge. A few years ago, we got the Justice League animated movie, and then we got the announcement of the live-action Justice League, which I think having that animated movie, which is now on Netflix, you can check it out, helps introduce those characters and the storyline, introduce Darkseid, which we're obviously going to see at some point in the Justice League films, to kids and to people that only have Netflix, that don't have cable. So in this case, Justice League Dark, not exactly a team of characters that is well known. I mean, as I mentioned before, Swamp Thing hasn't been seen in hardly anything in several years. I mean, if you only read the comics, I mean, you got plenty of that. But even then, I mean, that's a canceled storyline. Now he's got a miniseries. No ongoings yet. Justice League Dark, I mean, we've got Constantine, who has a following right now because of that awesome fucking show, including ourselves.
Oh, so
Swamp
good.
Thing, Zatanna, Deadman.
Lame.
And I don't know who else I'm missing. I'm probably missing one more. But
I know, they're probably lame.
It might have been Enchantress. I'm not sure. But no word on whether or not this is going to have any relation to Guillermo del Toro's previous attempt at a live-action adaptation.
But if it does, we're going to see that pale man with his little freaky eyes in his hands eating babies.
I think this could be a hint of okay, now let's put out this animated adaptation. I don't know how closely they work in relation with the animated stuff and then with the live action stuff, but this could be let's introduce these characters now to people out there that may not be as familiar with them, so that when we eventually announce hey, this Justice League Dark movie is coming, they can be like, oh yeah, I know who they are because I saw the animated version. I mean, let's face it, there's no comic right now that has these characters, so they're not being known from there. So do it through the TV shows, like maybe Justice League Action, and do it through a animated version of Justice League Dark. I think it could be really successful.
I mean, it would be a really smart business move.
The last word on your favorite director of all time, Guillermo del Toro, for his project was in April of this year, when he said that he'd actually turned in a final draft of the live-action Justice League Dark and would direct if Warner Brothers could agree on a schedule with him.
Guillermo drops out of everything. They could be like, Guillermo, you can work in whatever schedule you want. And he'd be like, no, I don't have time. And then, he would leave.
I've got to work on these other projects that I'm not going to finish.
That I'm also going to drop out of.
I'm just going to be producer on these and make a shit ton of money, more than I would if I would direct your shitty movie, which would be amazing because I'd be directing it.
And I think of all the best things in life. So there is no release date that has been given for this movie. Again, something we're going to have to check out. We're going to be so broke, man. Come on, DC.
If I had to guess, 2017.
Yeah, probably.
What makes you excited for Justice League Dark?
Constantine.
This is comic book Constantine on the big screen.
You don't know that. It could be TV Constantine. Have you written the script? Do you know what's going on? Could be TV Constantine.
Is it going to be like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? You're going to have TV Constantine with the animated characters around him?
I hope so. I would like that movie so much more. Hashtag save Constantine.
Always hashtag save Constantine.
Always. Forever.
Even more on DC's animated universe. Warner Brothers' very first R-rated animated adaptation, Batman the Killing Joke, is actually going to receive a one-night-only theatrical release through Fathom Events.
Perhaps you'll kill me. Perhaps I'll kill you. You know that, don't you?
There are two wonderful things about this story. Two things that make it my favorite story of the week.
Okay, I've got questions after you tell me.
No, go ahead and tell what you... I mean...
You said before that you did not want a theatrical release of this because parents would see this as a... it's a Batman movie, but it's R-rated.
This is different. This is Fathom Events. That's a completely different thing.
I agree with you because it's not going to be like a... They're going to see commercials on television for it. It's going to be any time that they can... Mostly adults are going to be the ones going into Fathom Events and making special events for this. I mean, it's not... I don't think you're going to see anyone under the age of 17 at this thing.
No, absolutely not. Because Fathom Events is a completely separate thing. They market just in the theaters, just in the particular movies that it pertains to. And then, it's very limited. It's only 2 times on a school night. It's not like they're releasing it to the masses.
Well, this is summertime.
Well, I understand that, but it's still like parents got to wake up and work the next day. Like it's not released to the masses. Whereas if they left it in the theaters for 2 months, that'd be different. But no, there's 2 reasons it's my favorite story. Okay, the first. I just forgot the second one. Fuck.
Well, one reason why it's your favorite story. Then.
No, wait. I gotta think of my. Fuck! I'm so mad now. The first one is it releases on my birthday.
Happy birthday
to
Papa Kelli.
Fucking me. Monday, July 25th. Fucking Christmas in July. This is our Christmas present this year. It's going to be at 7:30 and at 10 p.m.
I'm going to try my hardest to fucking attend this thing. I mean, if it sells out, it sells out. And I'm shit out of luck, but...
You want to know what's real cool? I already have the day off because it's my fucking birthday. And I don't work on my birthday, bitches.
I want to see the 10 o'clock. As opposed to the 7:30. Like, the later, the better. I think there's going to be less people at it.
I think that's false. There's going to be a shit ton of people at all of these.
Less obnoxious people, maybe, at the 10. Because hopefully they'll be more tired. Hopefully they won't be cheering during parts that I want to see.
No. False.
And I already have this bitch on pre-order. Like, I'm going to get this on home video.
Well, yeah. But we're still going to go see it.
On the big screen is a whole different experience.
It's going to be great.
And something I tweeted out, like, this is pretty awesome, but when's the Blu-ray release of Mask of the Phantasm? Like, I don't know why it's just...
That's just what you go to.
If we're going to do this, come on, fucking adapt that to Blu-ray. Like, if we're doing the Iron Giant on Blu-ray, like, the last thing I need is Mask of the Phantasm on Blu-ray. And then I can start whining about Batman the Animated Series on Blu-ray.
I remember my second reason is my favorite story. Because I knew this before you did. So usually Dan comes to me and says, did you hear about this news? And I'm like, whatever news. He's like, well, we're going to talk about it on the podcast. I'm like, news. But this time I went to you, I'm like, did you hear about this news? And you're like, no, I hadn't. I'm like, it's news.
Let me show you for once.
Let me show you what's going on in the world of comics.
So tickets go on sale on June 17th through fathomevents.com at participating theaters.
I suggest picking that shit up early because it's going to sell the fuck out.
Through a press release by Mary Ellen Thomas, Warner Brothers Home Entertainment Vice President, who had this to say.
Fans have been clamoring for a theatrical release of the popular DC Universe original movies, and the highly anticipated Batman the Killing Joke presented a perfect opportunity to work with Fathom Events to bring the fans' wishes to fruition for this special limited release.
Definitely a theme I saw when people were talking about the Killing Joke. I know a lot of broquettes, too, were saying this should be a theatrical release. Like, this should be put out in theaters. And as you said earlier, if you're going to put this out, don't do it as a full release. Fathom Events. And I think it'd be more expensive anyway to put it as a full release. Like, yeah, the Joker is super popular, especially leading up to the Suicide Squad. But as Fathom Events, I think they can probably get a better deal because they're getting some kind of backdoor promotion through Fathom events of like, oh yeah, bring your movie here, we'll promote it, and everybody kind of makes money off of that.
I agree 100%. I think this is the best move they can make to release it in theaters. Because, again, it's going to be so limited. You're not going to have all the random-ass kids showing up. Even if the kids ask about it, it's going to be like July 24th when they ask about it. And all the tickets are going to be fucking sold out. So if you're going to release it, this is the way to go. And hopefully this shows them that they can do these kind of things for future releases. And then maybe we can see more things on the big screen.
And that won't be the only Joker that you can see on the big screen. This year, you also have Jared Leto's Suicide Squad Joker, and Suicide Squad is actually, according to Twitter, this summer's most tweeted movie.
And, I mean, with good reason, too. That last trailer was bitchin'.
That's where a lot of that positivity is being attributed to, is the latest trailer, which we actually saw when we saw X-Men Apocalypse. They played it through there, and it was the newest trailer without the Bohemian Rhapsody. It's the one right afterward, and that was another fucking solid trailer. Like, they nailed it with all three of those.
Absolutely fantastic. But there have been, and again with good reason, over 1 million tweets for Suicide Squad between March 1st and May 26th. That completely blows Finding Dory out of the water, who only had 869,000 tweets.
And that was second on the list. Like, that was the next one, was Finding Dory.
Fucking crazy. People are like, I don't have time to tweet about Dory, I'm tweeting about Suicide Squad.
Finding Dory's trailer is not as cool. They're not going to be sharing that. I haven't shared that once.
Have you shared Suicide Squad?
I've quoted a tweet and shared the Suicide Squad trailer, yes.
All right. You're forgiven.
Don't forget, Broquette, Suicide Squad debuts on August 5th, 2016. Merely months away.
It has also received a rating that I was not expecting, which is a PG-13 rated by the MPAA.
Received this rating due to sequences of violence, action, disturbing behavior, suggestive content, and language. Basically what you see in the fucking trailer.
We don't want to rate it R because then less people will come see it.
But the Suicide Squad and the Joker and Harley, I mean, it has to be rated R. Like, there's an argument for it, but my argument is still always, like, if you limit it to R rating, and I know Deadpool, yes, everyone's going to point to Deadpool and say that can still make money because lots of people are going to see it. I'm sorry, Suicide Squad's not Deadpool. Like, you can't pull in a bunch of teenagers because it's Deadpool, simply because it's the character. Suicide Squad is, believe it or not, less known than Deadpool. Just a little bit less.
Just a little bit.
But the fact that they're marketing the Joker and Harley Quinn, and then now you're starting to see glimpses of Batman in the trailers for Suicide Squad, that's going to get a lot of that PG-13 crowd in the movie. And I don't think it needs to be rated R to see it. And if anything, they can do a rated R version, just like they did with Batman v Superman for home video. And
that was exactly what I was going to say. And that's exactly what they're going to do, of course. They will have a rated R version that you can pick up. But you're going to catch a lot more people with a PG-13 than you would with a strictly R rating.
Harley Quinn, when her solo movie comes out, I mean, we had guessed about this. Should that be rated R?
I think that's going to be PG-13 also.
At this point, I think she will have enough pull where they could probably get away with an R rating. But if I'm a movie studio, I think I'm still going to be like, hey, just cut out this half a second of fucking blood or nudity or violence, whatever, and keep it a PG-13.
Just put a pasty on that nip and we're good.
I'd be for that.
So speaking of Batman Superman, in a red carpet interview with Ben Affleck, I can never say his name,
Affleck, that's always how you say
it. Ben Affleck, in the Mexican premiere of Batman v Superman, Affleck, I don't like saying his name like that, gives some insight into the script for the solo Batman film.
He was quoted saying, I think what I would do is probably what Zack Snyder did with Batman v Superman, which is to borrow things from the great comic books and put an original story around it. I wouldn't want the fans to already know the story, but I would borrow and steal great things that have been done before in the comics.
I mean, that's a smart decision. That's what fans like.
Fans like to see the comic brought to life on the big screen. I know I'm huge on that especially, but with movies now, especially the superhero movies, we're not getting direct adaptions to a lot of these. Civil War was its own original story.
Right.
Batman v Superman, more or less, was its own original story as a whole. So I don't think fans are as apprehensive to having something changed or tweaked a little bit as they were, like, say, during the Watchmen days. And especially with a project like Batman v Superman, fans like me are simply grateful that we're like, oh, we get to see Doomsday on the big screen, or we get to see Batman fight Superman on the big screen. Like, that's pretty epic on itself. If we do get, say, the rumored Red Hood storyline in that, there are some things that they can bring to the table that wouldn't necessarily be a part of the original story when you put in a character like Jason Todd, especially.
And I think that's ultimately what people want to see. They don't want to see the same story rehashed over and over and over, but they do want to see themes from those stories or moments from those stories. Like we pointed out some of the things in Batman v Superman that were pulled directly from the comic books, just poses or images, and it wasn't retelling that story, but it was pulling those things into it. And that's I think ultimately what people want to see, and that sounds like that's going to be the direction that they're going in.
Henry Cavill also chimed in on what he'd like to see in next year's Justice League movie.
Oh, Superman.
He said, I want to see that rivalry between Batman and Superman about who is in charge. I think Superman wouldn't necessarily be upset about not being in charge, but it would be fun to play with.
Batman would be fun to play with. Whoa, Superman.
I mean, Henry. So how's that going to play out? How's Superman going to be like, no, I'm in charge?
I don't know. They're going to have some, like, dumb fight again, just being boys and who's stronger. And Batman's ultimately going to win because, come on, he's Batman. And Superman's just going to be like, oh, okay.
We just listen to you. Doesn't want to make him
Whatever
upset.
Whatever you say, that's right. You're more logical than me. Silly me.
After I died, I learned what was really important in life.
That was you, Batman.
Superman always loves Batman.
Of course.
And continuing on news for Justice League, we got a lot of Justice League information this time for this episode. Rumored titles for next year's Justice League film, like the rumored again, Justice League United,
nope.
Justice League Gods Among Us,
nope.
Justice League Angels and Demons,
nope.
have all caused Geoff Johns to come forward to Twitter and officially announce the title.
This is my favorite. So at Geoff Johns from Twitter said, clearing up any misconceptions, the Justice League movie is called Justice League.
It's like, bitches, please. That's enough. I don't want to hear any more of this bullshit nonsense that you guys are giving all of this Justice League film. None of that is real. None of that is even better than what I can come up with, which is Justice League.
Justice League, Superman loves Batman. That's what it should be called.
Justice League is set to release November 17th, 2017.
We do have, though, for this episode, our Nerd Rage Reaction!
Nerd Rage Reaction is a quote that we find on the internet, usually below the news story, normally on Newsarama, of someone being irrationally upset about what the headline is, what the article is. We don't reveal what the person's name is, but you're more than welcome to try to seek it out yourself. We just want to make fun of the comment, the idea itself.
So they essentially had nothing else to complain about this day.
The quote here, this week's Nerd Rage Reaction says, when you have to publicly explain what the title of your movie actually is more than a year before it hits the theaters, you're off to the opposite of a great start. Hashtag shake my head.
First off, you don't have to spell that out. You just put SMH and people understand what you're saying.
Was Batman v Superman a flop?
No.
Is there any reason to believe, no matter how much of a quote-unquote shaky start you think this movie has, and remember, this is the movie that they've made shifts to the directors, to the producers, based on feedback from Batman v Superman. So taking all of that, like just putting that aside, like pretending that doesn't exist, is there any reason to think that Justice League will not make a shit ton of fucking money?
I have no reason to believe this, Daniel.
So what kind of non-great star could you possibly have with a movie titled Justice League?
They just didn't really like it. Just wasn't like Avengers. It made me think too much.
What this person doesn't realize is that up to this point, they never really said, this is our slate of movies. It was all through the investor meeting where the information came out, where they had to explain to investors, we have 2 Justice League movies, and to investors you have to tell them, it's called Part 1 and it's called Part 2. And then we have all these other ones, Aquaman, The Flash, Green Lantern. And then eventually during that special, with the Batman v Superman special on television, Kevin Smith was on there, Geoff Johns.
Right.
I think that's when they officially confirmed that there is a Justice League movie coming to the public. And now Geoff Johns is saying, look guys, it's just called Justice League. Like,
stop making up silly shit.
Like, Bleeding Cool picked it up, Latino Review picked it up, and that's enough information where people were like, oh, did you hear? This is actually what it's called. Where he had to say, hold on a second.
Calm your tits.
We're not going to, before more articles come out of like, hey, it's called Gods Among Us. Do you think they're going to go with the Superman storyline where he comes back to life and he's going to kill the Joker? No, none of that. It's just called Justice League. That's all.
Take a breath. You're okay.
We'll see these articles pop up again after Justice League releases, based on the end scene or after credit scene, if there even fucking is one this time, of like, oh, well, this one's gonna have Darkseid in it for the sequel, and then they're gonna start coming up with more titles of what Justice League's gonna be titled.
People are silly, but Nerd Ragers are my favorite.
Last bit of news is on the comic book side, and it does relate to Greg Capullo, the all-star artist behind Batman, behind what gave DC Comics its fucking New 52 income, basically. I mean, if you put aside Justice League, you could have survived off of Batman alone. And he has announced, along with Mark Millar, their creator-owned project titled Reborn.
So we did speak a few podcasts ago about how Capullo was kind of taking a step back from the stuff he was doing with DC to work on his own project. And so this is just more information on that, on his own project. And I gotta say, it sounds pretty badass. So the official synopsis is, it's not heaven, it's not hell. It's as real and hard as where we live now, but filled with the most amazing fantasy landscapes, jaw-dropping creatures, and a battle raging between good and evil. The people she loved in this world, her father and her childhood dog, but oddly not her husband, who had passed over 14 years before. So she sets out to find him. She realizes that she has been reborn into a 25-year-old woman with a sword in her hand and a gun on her hip.
Millar went on to tell Deadline, quote, "The idea is always to create the project and then find the right producer for it. We have an idea of who would be good for this one. It must be someone who will understand the story and is passionate about bringing our vision to the big screen." So they're talking about making a fucking movie already. And in the world of comics now, that's easier to do because a lot of these studios are looking to comics and saying, comics are hot right now. They're the action movies of today. What's the next big $1 million film? And they want Reborn. We talked before about The Sender getting picked up.
Yep.
And Reborn is something they're going, this is going to be something that we are making specifically to make millions at the box office for. With an artist like Greg Capullo behind it, how could that not happen? What kind of vision is he going to bring forward that eventually you're going to say, are we going to see this on the big screen?
Absolutely, and just from that synopsis alone, it would make a good comic. I think it'd make a great movie, too. I mean, you could even pull it into a TV series. How many scenarios and things that could happen, you know, in that moment before she actually finds this loved one. There's so many opportunities to do with this, and I don't think it's far-sighted for them to say, yeah, let's turn this into a movie.
Reminds me a lot of What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, where his wife is also not in this afterlife and he sets out to find her as well. But this is more like a realistic afterlife, heaven or hell, as they said. It's more of a different world where everyone is reborn, but the rules aren't exactly fair or even, as she finds out when she doesn't see her husband there. This title, Reborn, this comic is scheduled for 6 issues, so it's going to be a miniseries, and it is going to launch in October. So we should see it in next month's previews, July's.
And with that, that does do it for our news. I think we should just call this show The Reasons I'm News, because that is all we talked about this episode.
I warned Broquettes this would be a longer episode.
And it's you warned me it was going to be, and it is a long-ass episode. So that is it for The Reasons I'm News. But we do have our Patreon shout-outs of the week.
And following that, we'll have our 3 comic book highlights for this week. So Patreon shout-outs this week goes to Lourdes and Katie, and also to Bobby. You can follow him on Twitter at Cuban Slim.
Cuban Slim.
That's how you would spell it if you are trying to find them. Cubanslim.
We want to thank you guys so much for your support. Every little bit helps. If you guys are listening and saying, I want to be a Patreon backer too because I want a shout out on the show, then you can go to patreon.com/thereasonsimebroke. We have different tiers, different amounts that you can donate. All of them come with fantastic, amazing giveaways.
We do want to emphasize that the show will always be free, but if you do want to support us with something other than the iTunes reviews, you could also check out our Patreon backers, our Patreon rewards to try to get something a little extra with the podcast. Early access, decals courtesy of decalavenue.com, all kinds of stuff for you brokettes.
And with that, guys, we are going to move into our comic book highlights of the week. Like we said, we had 3 books: Batman Rebirth #1, Green Lantern's Rebirth #1, and Superman Rebirth #1.
All of these sold out, at least at my shop, and I know they've already gone out of print. So you're going to have to wait for second prints if you do want to get some of these, or pay up the ass to someone that's trying to flip them on eBay. But for now, you can rest assured that maybe some of these are stronger than others, or if you want to get on to just the #1s and skip out on the Rebirth, we can let you know what's coming up. So the first one you mentioned, Batman Rebirth #1, is written by Scott Snyder and Tom King, with art by Mikkel Janin and colors by June Chung.
I really enjoyed this issue. I think it was my favorite of the 3.
Scott Snyder being on the book is very important because it's almost like a primer to, I'm lending this off to new hands, and Tom King, here is sort of what we have to expect with Batman.
Here's what you're going to fucking do, Tom King.
It picks up right after the final issue of Batman. I mean, we saw Duke Thomas strongly hinted at joining the Bat family. We'd previously said he should be the new Robin when Damian died. That was about 1.5 years ago, 2 years. And then instead we got the Future's End version, which still had Duke Thomas as an older Robin, which we absolutely loved. We loved that version of Duke. And now we're getting a different fulfillment in what we saw in the first part of Endgame, and that was a futuristic scene of Batman fighting alongside Bluebird, but also a mysterious character named Lark. And now we're seeing who exactly is going to fill in on those shoes and what we're going to get moving forward. And I think this was great for anyone that hadn't been reading any of Scott Snyder's run, and if you haven't, you should, because it was one of the best from the New 52.
Fantastic, yeah.
And I think this is going to keep up that quality. At least I hope it is. And so far, this issue does show that there is tons of promise to these big shoes to fill in the Batman title.
The thing that I loved most about this issue is it tied a whole lot of Batman back to his father. You got to see that, I mean, at least one time that I remember very distinctly, where they're talking about how Batman's father was crazy, but Batman's crazy too, and how they all do it just to help people. So I think it gives more insight into who Batman is. I mean, we already know a lot about Batman, but every time they can build on those layers, I think that it's great. And then at the same time, you get to see this new Duke Thomas, this new person in the Bat family, begin to understand who Batman really is and why he does that. And that's the best thing that they can learn, is where this passion comes from and how to get that passion themselves. And you get to see that all throughout this book.
So that would be your pick of this week out of the highlights. Next Rebirth title, Green Lanterns, #1. It is written by Jeff Johns and Sam Humphries. Art by Ethan Van Sciver and Ed Benes, with colors by Jason Wright.
This one was also a lot of fun. We get to see what's his name?
Hal Jordan?
No, the other guy.
Simon Baz?
Simon Baz and Jessica...
Cruz.
Jessica McScaredy-Pants. Both of them think that they're the only Green Lantern, even though there's 7 million other Green Lanterns.
I think where their success came from in Green Lanterns, and I was hesitant. I didn't know if I should get Green Lanterns or Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps. And kudos to you if you can afford to get both titles, or if you substituted something else that we're not getting for that. That's awesome. I think for the Green Lantern fans, 2 titles, 2 what appear to be are going to be solid titles out there for them is great. This one, and my coworker Alex also pointed this out, feels like a Jeff Johns book. And this didn't feel like it was written by someone different. And I think that was very important for something sharing this title of Green Lanterns. Following Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz is also good for the characters that they're building, because these are original characters that spun out of the New 52, and the fact that they're building off of them and making them more important and developing them and fleshing out these characters that Jeff Johns kind of set out to create, I think is going to make new fans for the Green Lantern Corps. These are going to be the lanterns for many people out there.
I feel like it's about time that they did this too, because Simon Baz, we saw him a long time ago, and I liked him when we saw him a long time ago, and they really haven't had the opportunity to turn him into something great, and I think that's what we're going to see from this book.
I think what I liked the most of Jeff Johns' Green Lantern New 52 run was that at the very beginning, that first arc, the first 2 or 3 trades, it felt like buddy cops for the Green Lantern Corps, and we're getting more of that with these two characters, and I think that's probably what I enjoyed the most. Like, yeah, it's not Hal Jordan and Sinestro, but it's still two very interesting characters, and so far, I'm in.
Our final book is Superman Rebirth #1. This is written by Peter J. Tomasi and Pat Gleason, with art by Doug Mankey, and the colorist is Will Quintana. Quintana.
One of my most anticipated titles was Superman Rebirth, because getting Peter J. Tomasi and Pat Gleason on a book again, I'm like, fuck yes, sold. Batman and Robin was one of our favorites. Like, if it wasn't Batman, it was Batman and Robin from the New 52. That was always at the top of that DC list. And with Superman, I'm like, I don't care who they're fucking writing. Superman, great. They're going to make Superman awesome then. Like, this is going to be a Superman book that we're going to pick up every month. Pat Gleason, unfortunately, did not do the artwork for this one. But Doug Mankey, who, again, did so much for the Green Lantern Jeff Johns run, did do this artwork and was pretty solid. You said this was the weakest of the three, in your opinion.
That's what I felt. So you've talked to me about why you really enjoyed this book and what it meant for readers, and I understand that. I didn't have that connection to the new pre-52 Superman. So for me, this book was, I can bring him back to life. No, I can't. And that was essentially it for me. I feel if I had had that connection to that character, then it would have meant something much, much different, and I can understand and respect that. But for me personally, it wasn't something that I really gravitated towards.
You're exactly right about the pre-New 52 Superman. This is establishing that legacy that people miss from that character, and it's also revisiting his history before the New 52. So it's really solidifying that Superman for a lot of readers that did not like the New 52 Superman, and it's also solidifying that DC is moving in this direction with, we're not going to have two Superman moving forward. We had that for a little while, and he was working behind the scenes. Now he is the only one. Pre-New 52 Superman is what we're going to get. And this is his history. Here's his legacy. This is what the book is going to be. And that's what these Rebirth titles are. They're like 0 issues for the series. This is what the character is. Now #1 comes out 2 weeks later. Here's the story.
Regardless, I still think it was a good book. Any of these 3 titles, I think readers can pick them up and be happy with. They were all great starts to even greater things that we're going to see to come.
From the retailer standpoint, being that I do work in that business, Rebirth is a success. Like, we've sold out of every single Rebirth title. This week, Wonder Woman is the one we still have left, but that's going to be gone by this weekend. The Flash fucking disappeared. I mean, that as quickly as The Flash is, that's sold even quicker. Like, it's ridiculous how well that book is doing. Green Arrow did ridiculously well. From the numbers that I was seeing, Green Arrow outsold Civil War. Green Arrow, it's not even the Batman book.
Amazing.
It's not the Flash
That's
book.
wonderful.
It's outsold Civil War 2.
Yeah.
Like, Rebirth is going to be a thing moving forward. I mean, the New 52 was the last big thing for DC. Rebirth is it. And if they continue that momentum moving forward, as they appear to have been with these titles, then it's going to be a very bright future for the company.
So guys, that is it for our news and our comic books of the week. As we said earlier, moving forward from here in the last half of the podcast, we are going to talk about X-Men Apocalypse. We put this at the very end so we just don't spoil it for anybody. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it yet, this is where we say goodbye. Thanks a lot. Cool to see ya.
Otherwise, if you do not care about spoilers, if you've already seen X-Men Apocalypse, here we go, moving forward with the review. We're a few weeks late because there were several other movies that we had to see, but we didn't actually have all the time in the world to check these out. We didn't go to the midnight, but we finally saw it.
Everything they've built will fall, and from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one.
Start with you. Your thoughts?
I actually enjoyed this movie a lot. I don't think I liked it as much as the other two. Definitely not more than First Class. That was an astounding movie from beginning to end. But there were some things that I really liked about this movie. Some moments that I really liked. I definitely cried, but I cry in almost every movie. So overall, I think it's better than the Marvel movies that we're seeing as a majority.
Marvel Studios.
From Marvel Studios, absolutely. I think they handled most of the characters very well. There were very few plot holes.
There were several. Where I'm going to disagree is I think the Captain America movies are better than the 2 X-Men First Class sequels. If you're going to make me choose between X-Men First Class and the Captain America movies, that's going to be a tough one for me. I don't know if I can give you an answer today because First Class was so fucking emotional, so fucking good, a great start, a great reboot to the X-Men franchise. I think where X-Men is faltering is the fact that they brought back Bryan Singer. Days of Future Past made a ton of money, not because that movie was better than First Class, but because First Class was so good. People wanted to see more of those characters in the sequel, including myself. And Brian brought back a lot of the old actors from his trilogy. I wouldn't say trilogy, from his 2 movies, because he didn't do the third one. And said, no, but these are still around. So don't forget my characters. Here they are again. And
Calm
that's where
down,
I was like,
Bryan
God damn
Singer.
it. That's where he tried to merge those 2 universes. And unfortunately, I don't think it worked out as well. I didn't care too much about Days of Future Past. And Apocalypse is no exception. That's another one that I'm also like, it's not quite there. Like, there's so many problems still with it. It doesn't feel like it feels like an X-Men movie from back with X1 and X2. It's not at that level that First Class is. And that's still what I wanted to see. And it relied on some of the things from First Class, which further reminded me, oh yeah, that movie was better. There's a better movie out there.
That movie was fucking great. Yeah, that's right.
Here's flashbacks to this much better film. And I'm like, God damn it. And to his credit, there aren't these other characters or these older actors that are coming into this. But it almost feels like this is how Storm became an X-Men. And it's like, no, this should have always been a new universe.
Right.
And that's what I thought Days of Future Past was establishing. Like, okay, we saved that future of what existed. But now, because we messed with it, this is going to be the new X-Men universe moving forward. So it's almost like another reboot. We're using the new characters, but still making sure like these other characters existed. Cool. But we did not get that. Instead, this is like, hey, remember when Wolverine escaped in X-Men 1 and 2? This is what happened right before. I'm like, no, don't fucking do that. Just make it its own universe. Like, continuity, I know people like continuity and they like things to fit. But again, I was under the impression that First Class was its own existence, its own brand new universe.
Continuity be damned. No, I understand that, and I understand your frustration. I mean, it wasn't a terrible movie. There were still parts of it that I very much enjoyed.
I agree. I mean, it's not an awful movie. I wouldn't even call it bad. It was very entertaining. There was a lot in it that I enjoyed. I think Apocalypse was a weak villain. There wasn't much sympathy to him.
No.
He's just a character. He was a mutant that was able to...
I'm gonna destroy the fucking world because I can.
He was able to... Anytime he transferred his body... He was like the Ra's al Ghul of X-Men characters. Transfers his body into another mutant. He gains the new powers, but then he also keeps the ones from his previous body. And after so many generations of doing that, he was accumulating all of these powers from all of these different mutants, and the one that he was missing when he comes into the present was mind control and telekinesis. Like, full telekinesis to the power of what Xavier can do. And once he gets that power, he can bend people to his will, and he can truly ascend to that god status. And that's something that they said he almost reached in the past before all these other religions, and that's where in the story they grab those portions of those religions from the Apocalypse story. So I thought that was a kind of a neat idea, but it's just not enough of a compelling character for me to actually care about him, unfortunately. And Oscar Isaac did fine, I guess, as Apocalypse. There wasn't anything about the performance that I was like, yeah, that was fucking awesome. And the makeup on top of that, we never got that transformation of, okay, now it kind of looks more like comic book Apocalypse. It still unfortunately looked like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers.
I will say there were moments in the movie where I felt you had to have some previous knowledge of X-Men to be able to appreciate it, like when Jean Grey becomes the Phoenix.
Yeah, if you had seen X-Men 3, maybe that would have made more sense. I don't know, I think in this case, like, we got that information ahead of time of she's having trouble controlling her powers, but yeah, it would be confusing as to why is it the shape of a phoenix? So maybe that was more for the comic book fans or for people that actually saw X-Men 3.
Maybe. I don't know. I just didn't think it'd make it... Because you highlight the whole time that she's got these mind powers, but then suddenly there's fire there, too. Like, I understand because I know a little bit about the character. But if you didn't, I feel like that might have been confusing for some viewers.
One of my favorite parts of X-Men 2 was Nightcrawler. And then, ironically enough, also in First Class was Azazel. Like, the different action scenes that they were able to do with the teleportation and the fighting was so dynamic.
They kept making that noise.
In those movies, it was so dynamic, and we didn't get a cool Nightcrawler scene in this movie, and that was really let down because I'm like, what are they going to do? Like, that could be super awesome, just like in the other movies, and we didn't get that, unfortunately. With Mystique, they gave her such a huge part of this movie that if you're going to make continuity a thing, Like, Mystique was huge in the X-Men team at that point then, and I know why. It's because it's Jennifer Lawrence. Like, I'm sure she only agreed to do this movie, and previously she said, I don't really want to do another X-Men because the makeup is heavy. It's not an enjoyable experience. But I feel like she said, okay, I'll come back to this, and I know you want me to come back to this because I'm marketable as shit. People will come see this movie because I'm in this. But I want to be less Mystique in this, not wear that awful makeup, and I want a bigger part and more lines. Because that means more money.
Right.
And you see that apparent in this. Because she's rarely Mystique. She's a Mystique in like two
scenes, maybe. Yeah.
And it feels like, okay, they filmed all of those in 2 days so that she didn't have to whine about the makeup anymore. Whereas in First Class, I mean, she's Mystique almost throughout the entire thing. Which I thought was great. But in this, it's Jennifer Lawrence. It's not Mystique. So that's another one of those things that I'm like, God damn it. Like, make it the character.
Katniss Everdeen, what are you doing? Get out of here.
It's like the Storm situation again from X-Men where Halle Berry wanted a bigger part, otherwise she wouldn't come back, so they wrote her a bigger part in the sequels. So all of that will affect the story and will have assholes like me like thinking in their mind, and all these things are going to stick out as they're watching it. And unfortunately, it brings me out of the experience. I think Magneto's portions were awesome.
Yes.
Like, Magneto's always been a huge draw ever since First Class because there's so much interest to that character. There's so much that you can actually do, and it's the same in the comics as well. But they expand on everything that they've built in these movies from the beginning. Of this is a character that is hurt because he's been through the worst of it with the Nazis, with humans discriminating against mutants. It all continues to cycle on this character. And this is the movie in which he said, maybe Xavier's right. I've done some awful things. I'm going to try to live life as he does. You know, under the radar, not killing humans, not trying to take over. I'm just going to live my life. And he does that, and it fucks him. Like, it makes things the worst for him. And that's when he decides, okay, then I'm not meant to be happy. And that's basically like his character of, well, I'm not happy, so everyone else has to not be happy and die.
Everybody's got to be mad too.
But it was somehow more compelling. Maybe it's because the other movies did such a great job of developing Magneto, and on top of that, he's an awesome actor, that all of this you just bought.
Well, even this movie did a good job of developing him too. We got all those scenes of him living his normal life, and this is what he does, and this is what he cares about, and then that's my dead noise. And then, like, it all goes up in shit. And then we get to see the progression of Apocalypto getting to him and, you know, trying to convince him of one thing. And, you know, there's that constant back and forth when he's fighting with himself. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to is also fighting with themselves and what they think is right and everything like that.
I do love that Apocalypse just picked the first 4 mutants he came across, like, you're worthy enough to be a horseman, you're worthy enough to be a horseman. Like, just the first fucking couple of mutants.
That movie was already like 2.5 hours long. We did not have the opportunity to go and search out more mutants. Okay, Danny?
I love that he kept putting people in walls, like, like,
That's what I would do with people, because they can still, like, see shit. They're just stuck in a wall.
Awful. Like, they couldn't just, I mean, they weren't able to break through it. I mean, it wasn't fucking, what are those soft walls called? Like, just tiny thin wall that you could just imagine if someone was stuck there. Like, I'm just gonna wait till Apocalypse leaves because
like I'm just gonna break out right here. Like, everybody's just making Apocalypse think he's big and strong just to, like, be nice.
Those prosthetics on Oscar Isaac, like, kudos to him for wearing all that shit because it could not have been comfortable. The last big scene I want to touch on with Apocalypse before we give our final thoughts on it, Wolverine. Smart of them put that in there, but I think the marketing did not need to have him. I mean, I felt like that was almost the studio saying, okay, we want to make doubly sure that people are going to come to this movie. Let's put in that scene of just a hint of the claws in the trailer. That having that not be spoiled in the trailers would have been so much stronger when I actually saw it.
Oh shit! What? I'm not gonna lie though, I didn't know that he was in there.
So that worked out for you.
So it worked out for me. I was like, oh shit, this is so cool. Why does he look like a scraggly man?
In the comics, he came out naked. Like, here he had these nice shorts.
Well, then I'm like, why didn't he come out naked?
Like, even if they had that shadow constantly over his bits, like in the comics,
that's fine.
I would have been fine with that. But they even had, like, that Weapon X gear from the books where, I mean, it's not exact. Like, they didn't have the fucking covering eyes thing. But it's like, that's fucking it. Like, that's Weapon X right there. That's as close as you're going to get. And then that first connection with Jean, like, that's the one part of this where I'm like, that worked in the continuity as far as that. Because there's this far off connection between those two characters where she kind of healed him a bit to calm him down. Like she said, gave him a part of his past, a part of his memory back. So that when he sees her years later, that's where that part of him is going to click with her and always relate to her, because that's that one bit of light after he had lost everything that he's going to not remember but still connect with.
Overall, I enjoyed this movie. I would recommend it. If you liked First Class, you'll probably like this one too.
I'll say if you like Days of Future Past,
okay, fine,
you will probably like this. But I mean, First Class was just so good that it's. I almost wish these other two. I mean, and you don't have to watch them. You can just watch First Class and pretend that's it. But these two could have done so much more justice to First Class. So that's where I was disappointed. I think I'm not going to see Apocalypse again, and just like I haven't seen Days of Future Past again. They're just movies that one-offs that I'm like, okay, I saw them once. I'm glad these First Class characters do exist and they're still around, and I'm glad they're still making X-Men movies. That's great, but I just wish we got one that was as good as First Class again. That elevated movies, superhero movies, all of them, no matter where it's from, Warner Brothers, Marvel Studios, or Fox. It elevated movies for me to what you can do with superhero movies. Like it's I mean, you can put it up there in the same category as the Dark Knight films, the Dark Knight trilogy. I mean, it's that good. It is the best X-Men movie. So to see something always fall short is going to be disappointing. And I don't know if it's to this movie's fault that movie was so good. I know that's going against it. So I can't entirely blame it. And I'm not going to say Apocalypse is a bad movie. If you enjoyed, again, this universe, by all means, check it out. Otherwise, for me, it was all right.
So, guys, that will do it for our podcast this week. This was a long fucking podcast.
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed it, especially for the new listeners that are joining us for the first time. Again, welcome, and hopefully you found something that you enjoyed.
If you guys heard anything that you want to talk to us about further today, you can hit us up on Twitter at ReasonsI'mBroke or at Kelli. That is me. That is my personal Twitter that I do not check very often.
Every now and again you do. You need to retweet more, though.
I don't know what that button is.
To find the link for everywhere you can find us, head on over to thereasonsi'mbroke.com. You will find a player there for the podcast every single week. Maybe you're using it right now. If you scroll on down, you'll find a link to our Patreon, our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, everywhere. If you don't support us on Patreon, but you still want to help out the show, don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes. Those iTunes reviews really help us out a lot. iTunes is the place where most of the downloads come from. And of course, if we get up on those charts, even more Brokeheads will discover us.
So once again, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm Kelli.
And I'm Daniel.
We'll see you on the next one.